Terrible judgment call by my part. I thought his Vikings were just going to continue moving straight to my base, which is why I pulled units back to my base and my line, and I thought that I could just dodge the Vikings and just drop on its base, but I can't, and his Vikings are floating dangerously close to my middle line, so I obviously suspect he is going to change them into ground mode and try to snipe off some SCVs. He does get one SCV, but I almost get a Viking, and it is so close to dying, so I am just going to leave 2 Marauders in my base. The 2 Marauders are so much better than 2 Vikings, and I will just leave them there, set up a turret, and just guard my base. 2 Vikings, that's a huge investment in the other player, so the most he has to do with it, he definitely has to harass me. If he doesn't harass me, he is not going to get the investment he's not going to get any return on the investment he put into the Vikings. I, on the other hand, am getting my Vikings out as well. I have 2 Vikings. I am continually producing more. I am thinking about expanding at the gold, because the gold expansion is going to be very, very good for any for any player. You definitely want the gold when you can. It equals 1.4 times another base, although I have thought about it, because the high yield does allow you to get 7 minerals with each worker when you mine, but there's only 6 mineral patches, whereas normal expansions have 8 mineral patches, so I think they actually even out. You know, I thought about it, and I was thinking, you know, that is kind of weird why there's always 6 mineral patches. Anyways, I noticed that at his base, he put his tanks on his choke and really far back in not near his expansion, so I am going to move up with my tanks and just siege his expansion, prevent his mining of the gas at the very least, because gas is so crucial to any Terran player. If I was only running on 2 gas, I wouldn't be able to produce this many Vikings, tanks, and Marauders. I'd probably be able to produce half. So that is my plan here, at least to damage his gas economy. Without his gas, his production would definitely be slowed down, and he'd have a great indifference between mineral intake and gas intake, and if he had too many minerals, he'd have to build marines, and marines, as I said, get destroyed by tanks. So here comes an armory. I do intend to get some upgrades. My engineering base is already up, and I am researching upgrades. I do want to get the upgrades as soon as possible, because in this game, when it's even, upgrades do pay off. That little bit, you don't think they do, but they do. And I realize he deployed his another player deployed his Vikings, so that means he is probably going to come in with a push. I am preparing for the push, and here comes the push. I stem my Marauders, and I actually targeted my tanks on the middle of his Marauders, and I deploy my Vikings now. It's a little delayed on the deploy, but that is alright, because the tanks are doing so much damage against his Marauders and his whole army. Most of his army composition, there were Vikings, because he built a lot of Vikings, and Vikings would get wrecked, because Vikings are not effective as ground troops. They do a lot of damage to light, and they are good for harassment, but nothing more. So right now, I'm just going to move right into his base, and oh, he gets 2 Thors out. Actually, if the Terran player just decided to push out when he got the 2 Thors, he would have been fine. If he lifted his command center, moved out when he got the 2 Thors, he would have kept all his... He probably would have easily won that battle, because my reinforcements were slow in coming. Here comes a bunch more Marauders, and he does have 2 Thors with a bunch of SCVs following. Very intelligent. You do want to mass repair the SCV, or the Thors when you can, because the Thors are just so costly, you don't want to lose them. And let's see if he is going to engage, and I just stem my Marauders, and Marauders are so effective against Thors, because the Thors shoot so slow. They might do around 60 damage per shot, or per 2 shots, but still, the Marauders shoot so fast with stem, and they are so cost effective compared to a Thor. Anyways, another Thor coming out. I am a little... 2 Thors, I think. I am a little wary about this. I do not think I'm going to be able to hold this off. So I am going to just pull back with my units. You have to know when to pull back and when you can win a battle. So knowing that his 2 Thors were going to defeat whatever units I had ready at the moment, I am going to pull back out. I am throwing down the expansion at the gold, because I realized that all his Vikings were destroyed. So right now I do have air superiority, and if I can just keep him locked up in his base, there's nothing he can do to harass my expansions. So that is giving me a very good reason to expand, and it would just keep my expansion safe, because if he does move out, I could just counter by moving into his base. I do have the upper hand here, because I do have this 5 o'clock, this little upper ground, so I can put my tanks up here, and if he decides to move out in any way, I have the upper ground, which is a huge advantage in any battle. As Sun Tzu would say, never attack your enemy uphill. He actually did say that in the book Art of War. So anyways, is that another expansion coming down? Anyways, regardless, I am just going to move some Vikings in, do a little bit of harass. I suspect he is going to pull his Thors back into his base, and I don't want to engage, so I pull my Vikings out immediately. I just want to do a little bit of harass, and just be a little pesky, keep him on his toes, because the Thors have a range of 10. They actually outrange any of your Vikings. And so he is moving out with his Thors again. He is not going to win this battle. This is just so bad for him. I have a tank siege up. Tank siege are very effective against Thors, as well as Marauders in general. And my Marauder production is extremely high. I bet he has 2 factories, and he is building 2 Thors at a time, whereas I'm building around 4 or 5 Marauders at a time. And 4 or 5 Marauders can easily take out any number of Thors that is in low count. Actually, that made no sense, because that's just like saying if I have more units than you, I will beat you, which is very true. And I dropped my Vikings in when he moved out with his swords, because I realized that he was not going to have any units in his base. So that is a very smart strategy. Just when your opponent moves out of his base, be sure to go and harass his main, because he won't have any units to defend. And that is exactly what I did there. I took out a lot of his SCVs in his main, mining gas, and the few ones mining minerals. So, and I just get away with the bulk of my army still intact, and that is just so effective. It's so annoying. I hate it. I hate it when, like, you know that if you just move out of your base a teeny bit, and the other player's like, oh, I see it, I'm gonna drop in your base, and it's just so bad because your army is out of place. Anyways, I am throwing down a lot more barracks. I am throwing down 2 more barracks at this middle ground. I have around 4 barracks in my base being thrown up, or I mean 4 bases overall, 2 being thrown up. And with all these barracks productions, my Marauder count is going to be crazy, because I am adding only tech labs, and I am building only Marauders. Marauders, tanks, and Vikings. What can counter that? I mean, really, if you build mass marines, you will get destroyed. If you build battle cruisers, that actually will defeat the Vikings. No, if you only have battle cruisers, Vikings can easily hit and run against the battle cruisers, because Vikings have a range of 9 and they outrange the battle cruisers easily. What else can be? Thors are destroyed, so you just need a larger army and a larger army composition, because this army composition right now of Marauders, tanks, and Vikings is so impregnable. It is just so good for any player to have. So anyways, the gold expansion is up. I am setting up the 5 o'clock expansion, and my economy is just booming. Sort of like in the mid-20s before the Great Depression. Of course, I am not going to suffer such a setback. Sorry for these corny jokes. I do lose interest sometimes, and I just start saying things. I do set up the other gold expansion, because again, the other player is set up containing his base. He has like 3-4 Thors. I mean, it doesn't really matter. These Marauders alone will win the battle, but I am just going to move in with everything I have. I am keeping up production constantly. I am not slipping on my macro or my micro. Actually, my micro is not so much right now. Micro is just sort of, oh, that is a sign of micro. I do pull my Marauders right back to my tanks, so that the tanks are able to siege the Marauders, and the concussion shells do slow the Thors down, because they did chase my Marauders, and all the Thors go down, and now there is just nothing left from me destroying the red player's base. So this is about GG. I have another expansion coming up. I am saturating this one, and that is it. Good game. So that was a fantastic demonstration of how to improve your gameplay. So thank you guys for watching, and more videos coming up soon.